Welcome to my Music Under the Lens series. In this talk today, we will explore the famous Intermezzo from Cavalleria Rusticana by Pietro Mascagni. Enjoy! Some important details before diving into the Intermezzo from Cavalleria Rusticana. Pietro Mascagni was born in Livorno, Tuscany, in 1863 and died in Rome in 1945. He began his musical studies in Livorno and then moved to Milano to study at the Conservatorio with Amilcare Ponchielli. In the Milanese period, he shared a room for rent with Giacomo Puccini, who was 5 years younger than him. In Milan, the two Tuscans, Puccini was born in Lucca, lived a bohemian life, made up with hard work, but at the same time made up of dreams, in a city that had an international cultural activity. Mascagni, however, was a restless soul. He did not adapt well to the academic discipline of the conservatory, even if Ponchielli himself supported him. His temperament often led him to clash with teachers and colleagues. And so in 1885 he decided to leave the conservatory and Milan to join an operetta company as an orchestra conductor. In 1886, during a tour in Puglia, southern Italy, with an operetta company, he stopped in the town of Cerignola. There, helped by the mayor of the town, Mr. Giuseppe Cannone, Mascagni was appointed as the master of music and singing of the new Philharmonia of Cerignola. Mascagni settled down in Cerignola, province of Foggia, for a period of time during which he wrote some operas, including Cavalleria Rusticana. What led Mascagni to the composition of this work was a very particular fact. In 1888, the Milanese publisher Edoardo Sonzogno launched a one-act opera competition. 3 winning works would be selected, then performed and published by Sonzogno. Mascagni heard about the competition only 2 months before the deadline. The total number of operas written by Mascagni throughout his career is 15, but only Cavalleria Rusticana could reach a success that continues nowadays. This is a one-act opera to a libretto by Giovanni Targioni Tozzetti and Guido Menasci, adapted from a short story with the same title from Giovanni Verga's book Vita nei campi, Life in the Fields, published in Milan in 1880. Let's have a look at the synopsis of this work. We are in a 19th century Sicilian village called Vizzini. It is Easter morning. The young villager Turiddu returned from military service to find out that his fiancée Lola had married the carter Alfio, while Turiddu was away. In revenge, Turiddu seduces Santuzza. However, Turiddu's passion for Lola is even stronger than before, and the two meet in secret at night. Santuzza comes to know of their story and desperately tries to talk to Turiddu. Turiddu denies everything and in a moment of anger throws her to the ground and goes away. Santuzza feels deeply humiliated and wants to take revenge. She goes to her Alfio and tells him the whole story. After Easter Mass, Alfio looks for Turiddu, who is celebrating with Lola and other fellow villagers. Turiddu offers Alfio some wine, which he refuses. Turiddu understands the situation and, despite knowing well that he is wrong, he challenges Alfio to a duel. Following Sicilian custom, the two men embrace, and Turiddu, in a token of acceptance, bites Alfio's ear, drawing blood which signifies a fight to the death. Alfio leaves. Turiddu calls his mother Lucia and tells her that he is going outside to get some air, and asks her to be a kindly mother to Santuzza, should he not return. Turiddu rushes out. A few minutes later, voices are heard in the distance and the woman cries, "They have murdered Turiddu. Hanno ammazzato compare Turiddu." The Intermezzo is a short symphonic piece, quite often used by composers at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries as connecting pieces between acts of operas. It can have a function of transition. There are wonderful intermezzos composed, for example, by Giacomo Puccini. One of his most famous intermezzo is the one at the beginning of the third act of Manon Lescaut. Generally, the intermezzo was used to be performed with curtain closed, so that the listeners, being not distracted by any action on the stage, could immerse themselves completely into the sound and get in touch with what the sound is transmitting and evoking. In the case of Cavalleria Rusticana, being a work in one single act, Mascagni positioned this intermezzo in a particular moment of the story to create a particular emotional situation. To guide you through the form of this intermezzo, I just got an idea. What I am showing you here is the spectrogram of the entire piece. As we know, a spectrogram is a visual representation of the spectrum of frequencies of a signal as it varies with time. We can see here that the intermezzo can be divided into three parts. This is the first one, this is the second one, and this larger and more intense is the third one. So let us see what happens in each of these parts. Let us take the first one and let's listen to its incipit. What we have heard is the first four bars antecedent phrase of the intermezzo. Mascagni creates a particular color without using a large part of the orchestra, just a part of the strings, that is to say, first and second violins, violas, and cellos. He does not use the double basses. What he wants is a light atmosphere which generates a sort of landscape through sound. The antecedent phrase presents at the end a short gesture of emotion, simply given by an accent on one note, then continuing with the second consequent phrase and concluding the entire period. Who is leading the melody here are the first violins. The other strings provide the environment and the harmonic color. Once more, it is like taking us into a sunny, intimate, religious landscape. The first part ends clearly, dotted by a little touch played by the harp. The religious atmosphere we feel is related to the fact, let's not forget it, that this story is taking place on Easter Sunday. Let us move on now to the second part of the intermezzo. Here we find something very interesting and effective. A kind of background landscape is once again recalled by the group of strings we have heard before. Yet within it we can identify a particular presence. The presence takes shape through the sound and the musical gesture presented by the oboe. What the oboe is playing here is a short, tender, painful gesture. The timbre of this instrument is particularly expressive and suitable for generating this atmosphere. I would also focus on what Mascagni indicates in the score in the second part. Strings are marked to play pianissimo dolcissimo. For the oboe, the indication is piano dolce. This expressive indication shows a desired sense of tenderness, profound intimacy, but at the same time a feeling of painful loneliness. In any case, let us remember that Cavalleria Rusticana is about intense and overwhelming passions, much in conflict with each other, and all of this within an enormous sensuality. If the first two parts are actually like two stanzas of a poem and form one section with religious atmosphere, now the third part presents a more intense situation. Let us listen to the beginning of it. We can hear now how the intensity changes, and so does the overall color. The winds are still not involved, but the organ and the harps are accompanying a beautiful melody, played in unison by the strings. This melody is more extended. It is like a ship that, with the sails unfolded, goes for the open sea. Let us listen to a large fragment of it. It is easy to notice that the rhythm of this melody evokes what could be a sort of slow waltz, or, as many scholars rightly noted, an ancient minuet. It is a dance, in fact, very elegant, very fascinating, with moments of great despair. Let us focus on this passage in the score, for instance. The strings with a crescendo head up to a high note played forte espressivo, then fall back and rise again, desperately repeating the same high note several times, before descending and slowly fading away. As it fades away with piano and then pianissimo, the melody rises upwards as if climbing towards the sky. That sky is evoked by the sound of the woodwinds playing a bright chord right at the end of the piece. The Intermezzo from Cavalleria Rusticana is often performed as a symphony repertoire piece, independently from the opera. I happen to conduct this piece a few times with different orchestras, and every time I noticed how much the piece put all the orchestra players at perfect ease, leading them all to an intense emotional participation. Here, the physicality of the sound goes beyond all other aspects, and the involvement is total. Not to mention the emotional involvement of the audience. Well, we have come to the end of our musical journey through this intermezzo. As I usually do, in the box here below, I have listed a few links to some performances that I would recommend. Some videos show only images, in some cases photos of Mascagni. A link will connect you to an audio where Mascagni himself conducts this intermezzo with the orchestra of the Teatro alla Scala in Milan. Besides, 2 other videos present live orchestras, a professional one and the youth orchestra. So wonderful to see how young musicians are intensively involved in the performance of this piece. I thank you all very much, and I would like to remind you of my other videos of my Music Under the Lens series. I also invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button here below the video. Many thanks and see you soon.